At a time when the world believed the war in Yemen had entered a phase of diplomatic calm, everything changed in an instant. An Iranian aircraft pierced the skies, heading towards Sana'a International Airport to break the suffocating blockade imposed on Yemen's main gateway to the world. For years, that blockade had prevented thousands of patients from traveling abroad for treatment, leaving countless families trapped in despair. But this was no ordinary flight. It became the spark that reignited an entire conflict. As the aircraft approached, airstrikes targeted the airport's runways, attempting to stop the landing and signaling the collapse of every understanding that had kept the fighting under control. Moments later, the region was once again standing on the edge of a dangerous escalation. The question is no longer about one aircraft, it is about what lies beneath Yemen itself. Behind the diplomatic crisis and behind every missile and airstrike stands a prize far greater than politics: Yemen's untouched natural wealth. While many of Saudi Arabia's major oil fields have been producing for decades, vast areas inside Yemen remain largely unexplored. Energy analysts have long suggested that beneath Yemeni soil lie significant reserves of oil, natural gas, and strategic minerals capable of changing the economic balance of the region. Whether fully confirmed or not, the belief that Yemen holds enormous untapped resources has shaped political calculations for years. At the same time, another crisis has been unfolding inside the country. Hundreds of thousands of public employees and teachers in Houthi-controlled areas have spent years without regular salaries. Economic collapse, rising poverty, and the continuing blockade have fueled growing public frustration. As internal pressure increased, every regional confrontation became an opportunity for military escalation. Aggressive, very enthusiastic, high-pitched military statement. Then came the response. The Houthi leadership declared a new equation: siege for siege, blockade for blockade, and the famous warning echoed across the region: airport for airport, port for port. Those words were quickly followed by action. Commercial shipping faced growing threats. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the world's most important maritime corridors, became a battlefield. Ships were attacked, regional tensions exploded, and Saudi Arabia responded with intensive airstrikes targeting for data port. Within days, the confrontation entered an entirely new phase. Missiles, drones, and strategic infrastructure replaced traditional front lines. Oil facilities became targets. Air defense systems were placed under constant pressure. The conflict was no longer confined to Yemen's borders. It had become a regional struggle with global consequences. To understand how this conflict reached such a dangerous stage, we have to look back more than a decade. As the Houthi movement strengthened its relationship with Iran, the nature of the conflict began to change. Military cooperation gradually evolved beyond weapons deliveries into technical knowledge, training, and the development of increasingly sophisticated military capabilities. Over the years, the Houthis expanded their arsenal, introducing longer-range ballistic missiles, advanced drones, and new strike capabilities that dramatically changed the balance on the battlefield. For Saudi Arabia, this created an entirely new security challenge. The threat was no longer limited to the border. Critical infrastructure, energy facilities, and strategic economic targets had all entered the battlefield. At the center of this confrontation stands one location that the entire world depends on: the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Every day, a significant share of global trade and energy shipments passes through this narrow maritime corridor. Any disruption here immediately sends shockwaves through international markets, shipping companies, and global supply chains. And when attacks intensified around the Red Sea, the conflict was no longer viewed as a local war. It became an international concern. Saudi Arabia had long viewed the Red Sea as one of its most important export routes, especially as regional tensions repeatedly threatened navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. But as pressure increased around Bab el-Mandeb, The kingdom suddenly faced strategic uncertainty from multiple directions. For energy markets, that possibility carried enormous consequences. This is why recent developments are about far more than military operations. They represent competing attempts to reshape deterrence, pressure political rivals, and strengthen negotiating positions. For one side, military escalation is presented as a response to blockade and economic pressure. For the other, it is viewed as a matter of protecting national security and vital infrastructure. Meanwhile, ordinary civilians continue to bear the highest cost. The story may have begun with one aircraft approaching Sana'a airport, but it quickly expanded into something much larger: airstrikes, missiles, drones, threatened shipping lanes, and a growing struggle over one of the world's most strategic regions. Between a nation suffering through years of war, economic collapse, and humanitarian hardship, and a region sitting at the heart of global energy routes, every new escalation carries consequences far beyond Yemen itself. The question now is no longer whether the conflict will reshape the region, but how far its consequences could reach, and who will ultimately pay the highest